Throughout history, wars have shaped empires, but battles, the raw collision of armies and souls, have defined the human story. Some battles left fields soaked in blood, some shattered civilizations forever. These are the top 10 most brutal battles in history, where the cost was beyond imagination and the world was never the same. Single drop of blood falls into the dirt and the earth remembers. The snow turned red at Stalingrad. In one of the longest and bloodiest battles of World War II, Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union clashed in a desperate fight for control. Every building became a fortress, every street a graveyard. Over 2 million soldiers and civilians died, starved, or froze in the relentless siege. By the time the Soviet counteroffensive broke the German lines, Stalingrad was a grave, a warning carved into ice and stone. The will of two superpowers shattered against the ruins. Mothers wept among the frozen corpses of their sons. Snipers stalked through shattered windows, hunting ghosts in the snow. No mercy was given, and none was asked. Stalingrad was not simply fought, it was survived. Hannibal, the master of strategy, unleashed horror at Cannae. With a smaller force, he outmaneuvered the mighty Roman legions, trapping them, crushing them, annihilating them. In a single day, nearly 50,000 Romans fell. It was not just a defeat, it was a massacre so complete that Rome itself trembled, fearing extinction. Cannae remains a textbook of death and a masterpiece of brutal genius. Men were pressed so tightly they couldn't lift their arms to strike. The screams of the dying suffocated under the weight of bodies. Blood flowed like rivers between ranks of the dead. Roman pride was broken that day, but not destroyed. From the ashes of Cannae, Rome learned to endure. The Somme was hell on earth. Launched to break German lines during World War I, the battle quickly descended into madness. On the very first day, the British Army suffered 57,000 casualties, the bloodiest day in British military history. For months, both sides clawed over a wasteland of mud and blood, gaining mere meters at unimaginable cost. By the end, over 1 million men were dead or wounded, and the world's innocence was buried in the trenches forever. Mud swallowed horses and men alike. Shells howled day and night, without pause, without mercy. Gas filled the lowlands, choking life from the wounded. Letters home were written in trembling hands. Most never sent. The Somme was a machine that fed on hope. In the summer of 1863, America's destiny balanced on a knife's edge. Gettysburg, 3 days of ferocious combat, would decide the fate of the Civil War. Men fought and died at places now seared into history. Little Round Top, Cemetery Ridge, Pickett's Charge. Over 50,000 soldiers fell under the July sun. Victory for the Union, but at a price that echoed Lincoln's words. A new birth of freedom paid for in blood. The wheat fields turned to fields of flesh. Families waited miles away, praying for a glimpse of their sons. Drums of war pounded across the valleys. Hope and hatred clashed under one broken sky. Gettysburg was a crossroad for a nation and its soul. Jerusalem burned in agony. The Roman legions, under Titus, laid siege to the rebellious city. Starvation and desperation tore the people apart even before the walls fell. When Rome finally breached the defenses, they unleashed a slaughter so total that ancient historians could scarcely find words. The temple, the heart of a nation, and was destroyed. Mothers ate the flesh of their own children to survive. Screams echoed through the catacombs as fire consumed holy ground. Gold melted and ran through the streets. The blood of prophets stained the stones. Jerusalem's fall was the death of a dream and the beginning of exile. Verdun was not a battle. It was a nightmare. For 10 grueling months, French and German forces bled each other dry in the longest battle of World War I. "They shall not pass" became the French rallying cry, and they held at unimaginable cost. Nearly 700,000 casualties for a few kilometers of ground. Shells fell so thick that the land itself died, becoming a haunted wasteland where nothing could live. The ground quivered like a wounded animal. Mud, blood, and the steel fused into an unholy trinity. Bones surfaced with each fresh rainstorm. Voices cried for help, swallowed by endless fire. Verdun was proof. Some victories are only survival. At Gaugamela, the fate of the known world was decided. Alexander the Great, young, brilliant, unstoppable, faced Darius III's Persian horde. Outnumbered 5-1, Alexander unleashed a masterstroke of tactics, smashing the Persian center and scattering an empire that had lasted centuries. Tens of thousands perished under the swords of conquest. It was not just a victory, it was the birth of a new world order. Under the banner of a Macedonian king who dreamed of eternity, elephants trampled men like ants. Spears glittered like 1,000 deadly stars. The cries of dying kings pierced the desert winds. Alexander's phalanxes rolled forward like a living machine. The old world fell, and a new one rose from its ashes. Agincourt, a clash of chivalry and desperation. King Henry V, with an army sick, exhausted, and vastly outnumbered, faced the flower of French nobility. Mud and rain turned the battlefield into a death trap. English longbows rained death, while armored knights drowned in the mire. Thousands of French warriors fell, many of them nobility, breaking the spirit of a kingdom. The French horses shrieked, trapped in sludge. The mud drank blood like water. Blades shattered against desperation. Courage mattered, but luck mattered more. Agincourt taught the world that kings fall just like common men. The fate of England was decided at Hastings. King Harold of the Saxons faced William, Duke of Normandy, in a brutal all-day slaughter. Shield walls buckled under cavalry charges. Arrows blackened the sky. In the end, Harold fell, and with him, an entire way of life. The Norman conquest reshaped England's culture, language, and destiny. Saxon cries mingled with Norman war chants. The future was forged by sword and fire. Eyewitnesses spoke of rivers running red. Legends say Harold died with an arrow in his eye, a king brought low by fate. Hastings was the death of the old gods and the birth of a new kingdom. Okinawa, the last and bloodiest battle of the Pacific War. American forces faced entrenched Japanese defenders who had vowed to fight to the last breath. Kamikaze attacks turned the seas into burning graveyards. Every hill, every cave was a deadly ambush. Over 200,000 soldiers and civilians died in a maelstrom of flame and steel. The jungle itself became a weapon, hiding snipers and death traps. Suicide charges lit the night sky with terror. Hospitals overflowed with the broken and the burned. Children were among the dead, sacrificed to hopeless dreams. Okinawa was not a battle for land. It was a battle for humanity's soul. In these brutal battles, we see the best and worst of humanity. Courage, cruelty, sacrifice, and loss beyond measure. The fields where empires rose and fell are silent now, but their echoes, their lessons, their blood, still cry out to us today, lest we forget.